Good morning, everyone. We're going to be starting our PLC webinar with auto technology teachers in just a couple of minutes at 9:30. If you have a question, a technical issue or concern, Tom Sudrick is with us today. So if you are able, on the right-hand side of your screen, you should see a chat box or a question box. If you hit the plus sign and type in a question for us, if you have a technical issue, we'll be glad to try to address that. Alternatively, there's a hand raised button, and you can raise your hand and we'll unmute your microphone if you have a question or a concern. Again, we'll try to address those before our webinar starts in just a couple of minutes at 9:30. Good morning. We're going to be starting our PLC webinar with auto tech teachers in just a couple of minutes at 9:30. If you have a question or concern or a technical issue, please feel free to type it in the question box or chat box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll try to address that before we get started. Again, we'll be starting in about 3 minutes at 9:30. We'll be starting the webinar in just about another minute, 9:30. So thank you for joining us this morning. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Professional Learning Community webinar, number 4 on model lessons for February 5th. We are glad to have all of you with us. I'll have to say that my name is Matt Fleck. It'll show up as Hans Meter on your screen, but Hans is the owner of the company that's helping us put all of this together for you. And I have to say that the Auto Tech teachers, our last Professional Learning Community webinar, were the most active conversants. So you all did a great job of communicating with each other and asking questions. We really appreciate that. So I hope that we'll have a similarly informative and creative and helpful discussion today. We have several topics we're going to cover. We're going to talk about some of the survey results. You did a quick survey for us from our last PLC webinar, so thank you very much for doing that. We have a couple of literacy coaches with us today to talk about literacy strategies in the Auto Tech classroom, because several of you said you'd like to hear some information about that. And also from our survey, several of you said you'd like to learn a little bit more about the latest on Common Core and integrating Common Core strategies in your classroom. So Sharon Kinney is going to be joining us today to talk a little bit about Common Core. And of course, we welcome your questions. This is an interactive discussion. We love it when you're communicating and talking, and that when I'm sort of in the background just pushing the button to make sure everything is working well. So we're going to open your microphone or your telephone in just a moment so that you can introduce yourself. If you don't have a microphone or you're not on the phone call where you can talk, that's okay. But if you are able to hear us, we'd love for you to say hello and again tell us where you are teaching. First, let me go through just a couple of housekeeping items that are right there on the front of your screen. Again, the 2 audio options. You can use your phone if your microphone on your computer doesn't work, or if it cuts out like mine seems to do. Going through the phone controls on the right-hand side, you click on the audio line, the plus sign by the audio. It will tell you how to dial in so that we can hear you and so that you can hear the webinar as well. Or if you want to use a microphone on your computer, that is certainly fine. If you would, when you're speaking, if we unmute your mic, you may have to turn the volume down on your computer so that we don't hear a lot of feedback. Just to let you know how to use the audio controls, again, on the right-hand side, most of you know how to do this, but there is a couple of things just to run through very quickly. First, that orange button, the arrow, allows you to open and close your panel, so you can hide it there in the corner, but if you click it again, it will unhide. I think you figured that one out probably. There's 2 audio modes. You can use your microphone and speakers that you have, and that is one way to do it. Or you can use your telephone, and if you click on the telephone button on the right-hand side, when you click on it, it should give you a dial-in number, and so you see the dial-in number there at the top, and then there's an access code and also a PIN number. So you have to have all of those numbers, a lot of numbers, in order to do it by telephone, but it shouldn't be too hard once you do that. And then, of course, if you have questions during the webinar, please write them in any time that you have a question. And we won't interrupt the speakers when they're talking, but we'll have those questions there once they're done so that we can ask them some follow-up comments or questions. Or you can raise your hand. There's that little hand-raising button, and I love that because then we can hear you, and we love to hear when you can ask the questions yourself. So those are the audio controls. Remember that the webinar is being recorded, and we'll post that to the SAS community site for you to see if you missed part of it or want to suffer through it again. Just kidding. The reminder on this screen is that up to 5 Act 48 credits are available. All you have to do is fill out the PLC webinar response form. We'll give you about a week to do that, and we'd like that you, if you could, follow the guidelines, as all good teachers do, I'm sure. And we'll track that here and make sure that you get the appropriate recognition and credits for your participation. Here's what the form looks like. You put your name at the top and some other information, a short paragraph on your takeaways, and a short paragraph or two on your opinions on other parts of the webinar, and then also some other comments at the bottom. Again, there's the email address there on the left-hand side of your screen, paplc@meterconsulting.com. Please do that within the next week, and we'll make sure that you get the appropriate credit for participation. I think that covers the main pieces. We're going to talk today, again, in 3 categories, but we're open to any categories. But we're going to first cover your survey responses that you did on a PLC survey from the last webinar. We have Robin Grimes from Erie County Technical School with us to talk a little bit about literacy strategies, as well as Tracy Stetler. And Tracy is from Reading Muhlenberg TTC. And then we also have Sharon Tinney with us today, and she's going to talk about Common Core and answer any questions that you might have about that. So we welcome all of those. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to let you introduce yourself. Again, if you do have a microphone on your computer or if you're on the telephone, just say hello. I'm going to go first to Alan Fry because Alan appears on the top of my screen. Alan, do you have a microphone that you can say hello? Okay. Doesn't look like Alan may have that. Back up there. We'll go. How about Ben?
Yeah, this is Ben Wenzel from Monroe Career and Technical Institute. Can you hear me this morning?
Sure can.
Oh,
Thank you, Ben.
awesome. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. And you?
Very good, thank you. Want to get rid of this cold weather, though.
Yeah.
I'm ready for the warm weather.
Yeah. Well, we're sending more your way, but some warmer temperatures later this week, I hope.
I hope so.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay.
Alan said that he doesn't have a microphone. That's certainly fine. He knows how to use the question box. That's perfect. We'll take your questions that way as well. Bobby Bard. Bobby, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, guys. This is Bobby Bard, Franklin County Career Tech.
Great. Thanks, Bobby. Microphone works great. Don Kosker. Okay, Don, microphone may not be working, and that's certainly fine. We'll let Don contribute through the question box. How about Jared?
Hi, this is Jared from Cumberland Perry Area Vocational School in Mechanicsburg.
Fantastic. Jared, sounds good. We may have to, if you ask some questions, you may have to get a little closer. It's a little low, but we can still hear you. So that's great.
Got it.
Thanks, Jared. Jason Jones, good morning. I'm sure he's saying good morning to me. It looks like maybe his microphone isn't working right now. So welcome, Jason. Jeff Linko. Now, Jason says he doesn't have a mic. Okay, that's fine. Jeff, are you with us this morning? Okay. Jeff Schnell. Oops. Sorry, Jeff. Jeff Schnell, are you there? Sounds like I can hear Jeff. Jeff Schnell, are you there getting some work done? He may be away from the computer right now. So let's see if John Dietrich, does your microphone work this morning, John?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Great. You want to tell us where your school is?
My name is John Dietrich. I'm an automotive instructor at Berks Career and Technology Center at the East Campus.
Fantastic. Berks East. Thanks, John. Appreciate that.
Lessons, please.
Leanne Orris is with us. Leanne, good morning. Do you have a microphone that works?
Hi. How are you today?
Hi. Very good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
And where are you at?
I'm from Fayette County Career and Technical Institute.
Fantastic. Great. Well, welcome, Leanne. Mike Castelli, joining us on phone?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Mike Castelli from Central Westmoreland Career Technology, also automotive, obviously.
Fantastic. Great. Glad to have you, Mike.
Thank you.
Mike Bernadine? Mike, I think, is on the phone with us. Mike Bernadine, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? It's the line, isn't it? Well, maybe Mike's joining us from that. Pete Holland says doesn't have a microphone again today, but they are there. So that's fantastic. So thank you very much for letting me know, Pete. Richard Ross. Richard, I think I've unmuted you. Can you say hello? Okay. How about Roy Morgan? Morning, Roy.
Yeah, morning to everyone. This is Roy Morgan from the Career Institute of Technology out of Easton, PA. So I hope everybody's having a good day.
Is it warm there?
Freezing my ass off. Yeah, we got these little goofy snows. I got 1 inch again, 1 inch again, just enough to make your windows messed up.
Yep, just enough to remind you it's winter. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, Roy. Welcome.
Sure.
Sandy Himes is with us this morning. Sandy, does your microphone work? Can you say hello?
Yes, I can. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sandy Himes. I'm the director at Lehigh Career and Technical Institute. So just sitting in and listening to the PLC and the discussions.
Fantastic. We're glad to have you, Sandy. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Sharon, I always mispronounce your last name. Is it Dialing?
It is Dialing. It's a Germanic pronunciation. So I'm here at Dauphin County Technical School. I'm an instructional coach here. Barry Kircher should be joining me. I have a feeling something happened in his shop and he didn't get up here yet. So.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully it's nothing serious, but
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you being with us, Sharon. Thanks for joining us. Mike Bernadine says he's here, so that's great. We just got another microphone for him. That's fine. And Todd Kessler. Todd, does your mic work?
Wait, Mike does work. Todd Kessler, York County School of Technology in York, Pennsylvania.
Fantastic. Thank you all for doing that. It's good to hear from all of you. And again, we hope to hear more from you, so raise your hand and we'll unmute your mic at any time throughout the presentation. We're going to introduce our presenters here in just a moment, so let me just jump right on in and give you a couple of pieces of information just to start with. Oops, there we go. And then we'll get to our presenters. We did do a quick survey about 2 weeks ago asking you to give us what you felt would be important to cover in the next couple of PLCs. And here's what you said to us. I can click on the right one here. Put this in a little bit of a chart just so you can see all of the responses. We just gave you really two choices, somewhat interested and very interested. So the lighter colored blue on your screen indicates what the majority of those who responded were interested in. The top of the list was more information on NOCTI assessment. So we'll be doing some information on NOCTI assessment. We can discuss today, certainly, but we'll also have some people to discuss that at future PLC webinars. So if you have any questions about it, be sure to raise them today. So the NOCTI assessments issue and concern was top on the survey. The other top 3 responses were on materials and resources, interested in more about POS task lists, and also about student engagement. So we welcome any comments on those 3 areas. And then the next level that was the most important to those who responded to the survey was on the Common Core. And again, Sharon Kinney will be talking about the Common Core a little bit later on this morning. So thanks all of you for responding. That was real helpful to us. We got a couple of comments as well. Those of you who responded said you'd like to see a little bit more information about increasing rigor and relevance into your lesson plans. We had one comment that I think this is a great comment. We passed this along to our superiors to see if we could get this working. This was with carpentry instructors, but I think it would probably apply to all CTE instructors. Maybe that there's a time on the webinars we could focus on one topic, share about that topic, and even share some resources that you can really put to use right away. I don't know if that's something you'd like as well. Other comments, running teaching strategies, helping boost student achievement, which we'll be talking about with literacy strategies today. Integrating math, which will be our next PLC. And then we had a cosmetology teacher that commented that the daily reading implementation was very helpful. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about reading strategies today. So let me go ahead and introduce our 2 co-presenters this morning. And they are Robin Grimes and Tracy Stetler. And Robin and Tracy, I'm going to unmute your microphones. And it doesn't really matter to me who wants to start, but Robin, I'm going to just defer to you to make it easier. Can you say good morning and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Hi, I'm Robin Grimes. I'm the literacy coach here at Erie County Technical School. I'm here under a 50% contract. My other half is a math coach. We were hired the same year, about 5 years ago, to try to improve AYP scores, quite frankly, and to bring more literacy strategies into the everyday classroom. So they were doing some nice things before they brought Tammy, the math coach, and myself on board with Sareed and Max teaching, but that they felt like just some instructional coaching would help instructors feel more comfortable bringing these literacy lessons and math lessons into their everyday curriculum. So that's where I am.
Fantastic. Tracy, I think you're on the line. Can you introduce yourself as well?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. You may have to speak up just a little bit.
Sorry.
Right.
My name is Tracy Stetler. I'm the literacy coach at Reading-Muhlenberg Career and Technology Center in Reading, Pennsylvania. I was hired 2 years ago along with a math coach, and we, backing on what Robin said, we integrate literacy and numeracy strategies with the instructors. We work very closely with the instructors to help them and help them customize lessons that will increase proficiency of their students in their classrooms and incorporate literacy and numeracy activities.
Great. Fantastic. I know that there's a lot of people with questions about this, so again, if you have questions, put them in the question box. Those of you teachers who are participating, or feel free to raise your hand and we'll get to those. Robin, I'm going to defer to you first. You gave me a document that I'm going to show here on the screen, and if you want to start talking about this one, and then I'll move to any document that you'd like me to show.
Okay, I guess I'll just do this a little bit chronologically. When I first came on board, we didn't have an organized, I want to say, literacy plan for the building. They were doing nice things, and they were trying to come up with a literacy plan. But once I came on board, then I wanted to make the plan accessible for people. And so my whole strategy was to work on some quarterly initiatives or strategies that people could do, like 2 a quarter. So for the first quarter, and this hasn't really changed in 5 years, for the first quarter we do building background knowledge and we work on vocab acquisition. So every quarter, if you flip through these, like that's 1 quarter, first quarter you're looking at on the board. And so what we'll do is I will do weekly readings building wide. We have 800 kids or so coming through our building half day about, and so I'll do a weekly reading that will highlight how that works. So we'll read little blurbs and I'll show them what it means to attack the vocab in the article or to try and build background knowledge. And then that's school wide, but at the same time I'm always hopping into classes and trying to see how individual instructors are working on those particular initiatives for the quarter. And so they get a little more sophisticated and a little more higher level thinking as you move along towards the end of the year. We're in quarter 3 now, so right now I'm trying to get them to model to think aloud and question the author and teach kids what it is to make inferences and to trust those inferences. A lot of times kids don't trust, what they're thinking in their own head and the assumptions they make, and we just kind of encourage instructors to say, well, if you're thinking that, maybe that's because the author suggested it without coming right out and saying it. And then towards the end, as they start working on their research projects for the year, then we get a little more into, paraphrasing and summarizing and analyzing and synthesizing material. And some people have research projects, and I'll go in and we'll do some lessons on doing some decent research. And so that's our overall literacy plan that instructors kind of abide by and kind of hold and, close to their hearts and kind of say, okay, have I met these this quarter? Have I met these this quarter? Because in the end, everybody has a binder that they turn in to try and show how they've met the literacy initiatives for the year. And so that's the overall plan for the building. And then we also have, I noticed that you were talking about some things that people were interested in knowing more about this year, or maybe it was last year. Jan Kinnanek, who is our curriculum development coordinator here, that's one of her hats. She started tracking and doing something called NOCTI assessment plans, where they would look at individual labs' performance in the NOCTIs. And while generally the performance is quite good, there were areas where particular labs didn't do as well as they had hoped in certain sections, because you never know what's going to be on the NOCTI. So she would track that data, and then they would, and then she would each quarter they have to come up. I don't think they do it the fourth quarter, but the first 3 quarters they come up with a NOCTI assessment plan where they're targeting 2 areas or using 2 RTII, high impact strategies, to try and improve that particular question or set of questions, or what am I calling, subject matter on the NOCTI. And I've been working closely with a number of faculty in getting those NOCTI assessment plans done, bringing some good engagement strategies and reading strategies into the classroom to try and get students to learn more about a particular topic. Other things
I'm sorry to interrupt. You use a different form for that than this one?
She does, yes. And this is Jan Kinnerneck's project, but you know, faculty members get really anxious and nervous when they have to put it on paper, and really it's been a perfect opportunity for me to go in, because I am their colleague. I have no supervisory role over faculty at all, so it's nice when they invite me in and ask me to help with certain things that they have to do. So Jan is in a supervisory role. I am not, and I don't want to be, but they will ask me to come in and they'll say, I need to get this NOCTI action plan completed for Jan Kinnerneck. Can you help? What can we do? And then we'll look at the data that she has given them as to which areas their students struggled with the most, and then we will come up with some kind of project for kids to do to tap into that particular topic. I know I did a pretty nice one here recently with the electrical guy, and we worked on motor controls, which they didn't do particularly well on, I don't think, and they didn't do poorly, but it was the lowest that he had, lowest score he had. So we worked on motor controls. They did some research on the web and partnered up and created posters about some, like, 9 different motors.
Robin, let me interrupt you just for a moment. And let's, Tracy, do you do something similar, or is it a little different with the teachers you work with?
No, we're pretty much very, very different. Yes, there's not a formalized plan such as this. I wanted to ask Robin a question. Is this something that the teachers fill out? This is something the teachers do every quarter? They fill this out?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah, and last year, we've sort of approached, they have it, and they do look at it every quarter, and some are very on top of it, and others are just like, sometimes they're a little panicked at the end that I do it, and lots of times they have. You know what I mean? They just don't realize they have, and so we'll sit down and have a discussion. But by and large, they're really getting comfortable with the plan. This is the 5th year for the plan, and they really are getting quite comfortable with it and know what they're supposed to be doing. But they do fill that in, and they don't have to turn in every document that they've ever done, but they have to show a couple of examples of good reading strategies, you know, based on some of these initiatives at the end of the year binder. But what I believe happens if they get walkthroughs from supervisors is that the supervisor looking to see if they're putting these in place when they're watching the lesson.
Yeah, we do something similar to that. That's the administrators do e-walks, and you know, they keep track of that, and then the teacher can provide feedback to administration about what they are, you know, doing. You know, because they're only seeing them for 20 minutes. That's not a, you know, there's no indication of what they're doing the rest of the quarter from 20 minutes. So, yeah.
Robin, can we show some of the examples of documents you use or that your teachers use?
You know what? If you want to flip to some of those that I sent you, Matt, I can show you what people have asked me to do. For instance, newspapers and education. Now, we actually get from the Erie Times newspapers twice a week, and this is available to faculty. They don't have to use it, but a lot of them do, because when Tammy and I started, the math coach and I started, the administration wanted to do something every day, either math or reading, and we called them bell ringers. And so on Mondays and Wednesdays, there's a math bell ringer. They call it math reading. There's some kind of little math lesson. I mean, we're talking 5 or 6 minutes. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, there's a reading activity. And so one of those days is supposed to be sustained silent reading for 10 or 15 minutes, and the newspaper is at their disposal. So I know that construction trade uses this kind of system that you're seeing right there now. They like their students to work in pairs, to pick up the paper and flip through the paper and choose an article. and read that article for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, whatever it takes to get the gist of the article out, and then those kids get up and actually present the main points of that article. That's just the way construction trade does it. The kids don't seem to mind it. In fact, they get into it the more comfortable they get with it, and then they learn about the paper that day. That's one way of doing it. Other people are looser with it. They just ask them to read it for 10 or 15 minutes. It's really, truly a free read, and that's theirs. But construction trades likes a little more structure. So that's what they do. There's a couple more lessons on there, Matt. If you can flip to another one, I can tell you what other people have done.
How about another auto tech related lesson?
Yeah, that's great. Here's one I sort of liked. We did the teacher will pick out, Sam Stever is one of our teachers down there, and he will pick out an article from a trade journal. I don't know which one. At Hemmings, he likes Hemmings. And it's a one-page article, and it's not tough, and it's got pictures. But, for instance, this one was on Louis Chevrolet, what we did was a little pre-reading activity just to get them thinking about the brand, because it was talking about the brand, this particular article. And so what I did was I just did a Google image search on all the icons, as you can see, from the different car makers. Some are obvious and some aren't. And so what I gave the kids is in pairs. I let them name as many of these icons as you can in the next 2 minutes. And they had fun with that, actually. And really what that did was it was just a little pre-reading activity to get them engaged and ready for the article. And so you have all those different, the Mercedes and the Toyota, and then we sort of made a little game out of that. And so, interestingly, I know I'm dating myself, but a lot of the kids didn't know some of these emblems, and I thought they would know them all, and being auto tech students, but they really didn't. And so that was sort of fun. Then we read the article, and there was a little and discussed, I think, the major points or the main ideas in that article. I think I forget which quarter I did this one, but it would have gone with one of the initiatives that you saw before. Now what Matt's showing you here on the board is this is one of the things that would go out on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday, a reader response goes out. And I unfortunately didn't put up here which initiative I was hitting here. But this one was about something that showed up in the Erie Times News. And so since we get the paper, I just kind of go onto their website and print it out here. And then this can go out school-wide, and they can do it or not do it. We used to ask that everybody do the same one. But the teachers had some opinions about that and thought, why should I be doing some reading that isn't specific to my lab? And I honor that completely. It's like, you do not have to do this reading. Please do something else. And if you need help with that reading, let me know. But a lot of people actually do it. Health Tech would jump right on this. And I know that the welders love to read these things, and they'll do them, and they actually make a little class out of it. So that it really depends on how much the instructor embraces the activity as to how much I get back from students. And they will turn these in, and I'll look at the answers. And I used to put the answers up. I used to highlight them in the hallways as for which ones I thought were good representations for that week. And they used to really like to see their work on the wall as a good example of reading closely and making connections, whatever the initiative happened to be that quarter. One instructor even used to give a kid a warm pop if he was responsible, or she was responsible for getting him on the wall of fame up there in the front hallway. So that's just, so there's a few different initiatives. This is one.
Yeah, these are great examples. I want to open it up to the teachers who are participating, because I'd like to hear what you use for reading strategies, especially ones that have been successful, that other auto tech teachers might want to use or implement in their classroom. I think what we hear a lot is auto tech teachers and CTE teachers in general say, I'm not an English teacher, and I think everyone recognizes that, but I think you share in the responsibility of helping students understand literacy and reading, and I'm sure, Tracy and Robin, that's your role as well, is not to make CTE teachers English teachers, but to help them as much as possible. So if you are a teacher and you have a particular way that you do a reading strategy, raise your hand and we'll unmute your mic, or put it in the question box and we'll make a comment there. John, I'm going to open up your microphone. John Dietrich, did you have a comment? Go to Don Kosker. Don, I think your microphone works. Did you want to say something about that? Maybe not. Maybe my microphone's not working.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
John.
Can you hear me? Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't press the button. I was talking to myself. we commonly do things like I'm sure everybody else does. We subscribe to Car and Driver and Road and Track and things like that for kids that want to read. And sometimes if I go through it and I find articles that I find specific to what we're doing in shop, excuse me, I'll cut it out and we'll share it. But like I say to these kids a lot, I ask kids if they read. I said, do you read often? And almost all the students say, I don't hardly, read at all. I don't. And then I point out to them that we're actually reading constantly. We're reading service manuals, tech service bulletins. We're following pinpoint tests and troubleshooting guides, and that's all reading. And they almost don't even count that, because to them that's working on a car, not actually reading. To them, reading is reading for fun. And I said, you may not read for fun, but you read constantly. So, we kind of use, if I see tech service bulletins, I have them read them. We use a textbook that has little, it's called Duff's Garage, and we'll read through them, and it's like a case study, an automotive case study. We'll read through those, and I pretty much just get kids on the thinking that if you're going to work on cars, you're going to read. You're going to read all the time, every minute of the day pretty much when you're doing your job. And I think that sometimes puts a light bulb on top of kids' heads, because up until then they really didn't think that they read. I don't know if that makes sense, but they really didn't look at it as reading. They looked at it as working on cars. So I just remind them that we're always reading.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Tracy or Robin, do you want to make a follow-up comment on that, on what John's doing?
I can comment on that. Yeah, I do, and I like that discussion that you're having with kids about reading, so that it doesn't seem like something that's foreign to them or something that they shrug off, because those are skills, and from those skills, then you ask them to do something a little more in depth. And I guess, my comment to that is, if you have the opportunity to do a little more in-depth reading, and this is what I worry about with our kids, is that while they do read their texts and their bulletins, it's just a matter of being able to focus on something that's a little more difficult and uncomfortable for them than the billboard or the text or the instructions, so that when they go to take those tests that they need for their certificates, and whatever the state standard test happens to be at the time, they can actually not get frustrated by the vocabulary they may see in there or by the way the question's presented to them. So I guess I still like to see some, and I'm sure you do, with their textbook, try and get them a little more complicated reading or something that's a little more out of their comfort zone, just so that they're not frustrated and just shrug it off. Because I find that tends to happen with a lot of kids. If it looks too hard, they just won't read it. So I like to keep them from getting frustrated at that level.
Let me unmute
I work closely
Leanne.
with Sam Morocco, who's our automotive technology instructor, who couldn't participate today, but I provide him with articles from all different newspapers and magazines, and a lot of times he will save them or he'll use them as it's relevant to what he's covering in the class. So we're not just picking a random article and giving it to them. We try to gear it towards what's being covered at that moment in his classroom.
Good. That's a good point. And I imagine the students appreciate it more that way, too. It seems relevant to them.
Right.
To their class. Leanne, I've unmuted your microphone. Did you want to make a comment? Leanne Orris?
My coworker, Mr. Kapasco, has something to say.
Good morning, everybody. Joe Kapasco. I'm the diesel mechanics instructor here at Fayette County CTI. Kind of relating, I think, to what John was saying is I use a lot of reading strategies also is, my students are constantly have to look information up in either printed service manuals or a lot of the OEMs now, or you have to go online to their servers to get them. And then I ask the student to repeat to me what they read or how pertinent that information was to the task or what they're working with. And another thing we use is I create word problems sometimes with really essential and non-essential information where they have to pick out what's important to solve the problem, and they seem to get very competitive with each other as finding the what's important and what isn't. And another thing we use a lot is I go we're south of Pittsburgh here, is I get on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette online, and we go into the one ads, and there's a lot of employers now in the mechanic field. They're actually listing job descriptions, qualification, wages, and what they expect you to be able to do. So, you know, I asked the students, did they pick out this information or that? And the last thing we use too a lot of times is it gets the students revved up about like new vehicle reviews as to you know, like what Mack, Caterpillar, Ford, Chevy, etc. comes out with, and that seems to strike their interest and makes them want to do more.
That's a good point. Thank you very much for that. Pete Holland also says that like you said, the technical reading has to become fun for them, for the students, which is the point of becoming a technical person. They has to be relevant, has to be important to them, or you may not get very much reading comprehension. Ben Wenzel, I unmuted your microphone. Do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to let people know out there that there is electronic information for articles to be read, and then as a class you can go over those articles together individually. It's USA Today Education for Teachers, education at usatoday.com. So if you want to do something with a big group, this is a good resource to use. We also, you know, do what everybody else has been talking about out there. We try to get them to read more, which is very difficult. But you know, you got to force their hand a little bit. They don't like to read, although, like everyone says, there's a lot of reading involved in automotive technology. But just trying to get them to do chapter summaries and to go over the objectives, to list those, to go over the main topics in the chapter, to break the chapter down for remediation before they do, you know, their summary at the very end of a packet that we put together for them. That kind of forces their hand a little bit more. There's also automotivenews.com, which talks about the industry changes, car sales, technical information that's available. We try to hit that once a week if we can also. So we try to keep up on a lot of the reading and use a lot of the resources to our advantage. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted to say. But it is a challenge because you got to force the hand a little bit to read. Although we're doing a lot of reading, you know, even my assistant director, she's in with me today, Carolyn Shigalski, and she gives me these consumer reports out of magazines, and we'll go over that too to get them, you know, more educated in the areas about the consumer and things to buy, things to be aware of, recalls on vehicles. So there is great information out there. You just got to try to, you know, pick and choose your battles there.
Yeah,
thank you.
Exactly. Hey, and Ben, just before you go, what was the first website you mentioned? You mentioned automotivenews.com. There was one at the very beginning that you mentioned. Ben, Mike,
It's the one that your school can subscribe to. It's electronic online. It's education at usatoday.com. And you have to apply for, you could also apply for a grant, I believe. Dr. Shigalski was just writing down on a piece of paper here, so that it's no cost per se out of the school's budget.
No, very nice. Yeah, most newspapers are really helpful. They've got lots of websites and resources. Fantastic. Thanks, Ben. That's very helpful information. Sharon, Dialing, I was going to open up your microphone. Did you want to make a comment real quick?
Hi. Actually, Barry came here and he wanted to share some of the things that he does to prep for a article.
One of the things that I do, you know, vocabulary is very important and part of the understanding. What I do with the students is I may create a word search and then the next day or so bump it up to a crossword puzzle and then bring out some of them vocabulary words in the articles that we're reading from the different newspapers and things like that. We are using the Education Today and the New York Times. They're very good.
Very good. Thank you for that. We got another comment from Todd Kessler. Todd, did you want to say something?
I just want to say that here at York County School of Technology, we started last year using Max.
Sorry.
Yes.
Your volume's kind of low. Can you scoot a little closer to the mic?
Yep. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Thanks.
Okay. we're using Max Teaching so that basically the way that that's set up is that our students are reading like parts of their chapter, and then we talk about what they read and everything, but a lot of it has to do with students reading and then interaction and discussing what they read, summarizing what they read, having free writes about it, discussing as far as groups go, and sharing it with the class. And the whole system is set up that you're more of a facilitator and trying to get the students to go towards the content that you want them to learn. It's something new. I've been using it a little bit in my classroom. I'm not full-blown with it, but some of the activities that they have for it is really good.
Fantastic. This is great information. I really appreciate all the teachers who have contributed. That's nice to know what you're doing. Tracy, I want to give it to you. I think I'm going to try to show your slides here, so I'm going to click on this button. So I hope that it works. You'll have to click on a button on your screen that says show your screen. But do you want to talk a little bit about some of your strategies you use?
Yes.
Great.
Can you see the screen?
I sure can. Wonderful.
Okay. All right. So the first thing that I do as a literacy integration specialist is to give each student, when they start their time here at our school, a reading assessment and a learning style assessment, and that's shared with the instructors. So they are aware of those things with their students. As far as professional development, we also use Max Teaching. We do a lot of collaboration between myself and the instructors, customizing lessons. It's not maybe quite as formalized as what I think Robin was saying with the sheets and things that she uses, but there's a sense of accountability with the instructors because of the e-walks, and then I use that data from those e-walks also to target maybe instructors that are using the same strategy over and over again, maybe need some ideas about some new strategies to use. We have a shared file that all the teachers, everyone in the school has access to, that has all the forms for everything. So if someone wants to do an anticipation guide, it's there. The template is there. They can customize it. So all that is on the shared files, as well as Max Teaching videos. So if they want to take it upon themselves to do that, that's fine. They can go and watch the videos. I also run some after-school refreshers, because we covered Max Teaching about 2 years ago, and some things, people get stuck sometimes in a rut and they're using the same strategies, so we try to give them some different options. Or teachers will call me and say, look, I'm teaching this and I need a strategy, something's not working, so we meet and discuss those things and do some modeling that way. Myself and the literacy coach also, every in-service, we cover some sort of literacy, numeracy strategies that we share with the instructors, and the instructors actually will prepare things to go along with that. The last in-service we did an anticipation guides, so they were very clear on that. We did a modeling activity with that. And we also incorporate the SREB Skills for a Lifetime, teaching students the habits of success. So those 6 skills are incorporated into our classrooms every day as well. And if anybody has any questions about any of that, they can email me. I can go further with that. We have a word of the day that pops up every day on our TV screens, and our teachers use these words in their classroom. They are SAT words. And then there's examples such as this that are on the screen, and the students will journal with those. They also do program area words of the day, and I'll get a little bit more in with that a little bit later in the PowerPoint, so that they're covering an industry word every day. They're covering the SAT word every day, as well as some other things in their classrooms with the journaling. We have a reading program that the students can participate in. Now, teachers can do this voluntarily, or I can come in and provide them with some materials to help them with this. Again, this all is on the shared drive. And students read books, magazines, newspaper articles, and for every summarized article they turn in, or 5-paragraph essay, they earn points for prizes, and we have drawings at the end of each quarter. They win lunch in the restaurant. They can win gift cards, movie passes, and all that supported by the milk and tea vending machine. That's how we fund that program. And we also encourage every instructor to have some sort of program area specific library, whether that means books or magazines or the newspaper, or have them take it upon themselves to subscribe to the newspaper. I get lots of different publications every day, and I go through them and I will cut those articles out, provide the teachers with the article, and maybe help them with an anticipation guide or help them with some sort of activity to use that article in their class. So I mostly look for articles that are specific to that program area. Now, it doesn't mean I don't use other articles. There are some good, compelling articles, I think, that are, of worthy to use in the classrooms with the students. We just did one last week in one of the classrooms on foul language. And, we went into a very good discussion about it, and there was a lot of good writing about it. Another thing that we use, if somebody has a question about the reading assessment, I use the Gates-McGinnity reading assessment. So that's the one that I give the students. And then the learning styles assessment is actually a Penn State website that we go to, and it's free, and it gives immediate feedback. The students come up to the computer lab, or they can do it in their classrooms. They log on and take the assessment. It takes about 10 minutes. They answer a series of questions, and it tells them what their learning style is, which is also good for students to know.
Tracy, what is that one again?
The reading assessment?
Uh-huh.
It's called Gates-McGinnity.
So if anyone needs more clarity, we can get that for you, but that sounds good. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. One thing that we really focus on in a lot of program areas is process writing. And this requires the student to think very in-depth about how to do something, maybe it relates to safety. It could be a NOCTI skill, writing the steps down in order of operation, and really thinking about those steps and who is reading the steps. Is it another student that's going to read the steps? Is it a novice? Who is reading the steps? So we go into a really in-depth, kind of writing assignment with this. And this could take a few days, keeping the students on track with how to write a process of something. And I have some examples. This is one that we did in horticulture, and this can be applied to any program area. So if you have a NOCTI skill that the students are a little bit fuzzy on, this is a great way to get them to really solidify what those steps are, or a safety issue. The steps to perform something that requires a lot of safety involved in it, which there's a lot. This was how to make a corsage. The students all did this independently, and then on the smartboard we kind of compiled the list of what the students kind of thought were the steps to how to make a corsage. And then we reviewed it, and there were actually, if you look in the red part, there was sub-steps for certain things. So it was a little more involved than they really thought it was. They know how to do it, and it's very easy, but to write it out becomes another, whole process and a whole way of thinking about how to do something. And then in the end of this, we will be doing a poster that will have all the steps listed, and that poster is, hung up in the room, and, it's there for, clarification.
Tracy, let me interrupt you just a moment. Mike had his hand up. Mike Castelli. Did you have a question, Mike, or a comment, Michael?
Question, comment. We'll take it for what it's worth.
Okay.
I've been struggling for the last couple of years with the overall goal of literacy in automotive. Obviously, I understand the importance of reading, writing, vocabulary, everything. I will not let a student come up to me and say, hey, I need that tool. Which one? The thing with the thing?
Yeah.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And we really push for vocabulary. We do writing assignments. It's mandatory from the administration. I always make them automotive related. At least in my class, I can say most, if not all, students are tactile learners. I've given the learning questionnaires, the style questionnaires rather.
Yes.
And with what we do, professionally speaking, in automotive, I think to truly get into real writing and real critical thinking is not necessarily maybe the best thing for our field when you're trying to chunk information. To get a 5, 6, 7 paragraph paper on a small one-day assignment, you know, to try to get somebody to write 5 paragraphs on how do we rotate tires. Well, the entire instruction in the book is only 2 paragraphs long.
Right.
Summaries at the end, you know, we do for part of an alignment final. That's where things get real technical. That's where the reading and writing has to be precise, you know. But to do that, you know, every day, every other day, once a week, sometimes I question whether it's feasible or not in our profession. And again, I appreciate all the reading, the writing, but again, as a new teacher, I have to wonder what the ultimate goal is. You know, obviously reading and writing, but to what level do we stay to?
I think in my, you know, this is just my opinion, is the ultimate goal is, you know, better understanding, clearer understanding of what you're trying to teach them in your content area. You know,
and I agree with you.
Clearer understanding.
I think, but when we stray away with the other articles and we make it based on reading, that's when people start to shut down. You know, when we do the newspaper, I mean, I like it. I question its usefulness in our program.
Well, like I said, I definitely choose articles that are very specific to what's being covered. I know Sam Morocco does use the articles in his program, and he uses them in a way that is always relative to what they're covering. You know, he may take an article that I say, here, I thought maybe this would be of interest, and he'll say, I'll use that next quarter. You know, we'll be covering this at such and such a time, and that would be a good one too. You know, and he really is careful about which articles he uses. He reads them, and is very careful that it's very relevant to what the students are covering. You know, it's a waste of time to do something that's not relevant to what he's covering. And I have some examples of some things that he does specifically in my PowerPoint that, you know, maybe will help.
And again, I've had this discussion with several other technical instructors, you know, maybe not necessarily automotive, but, you know, fields throughout the school. And a lot of them say the same thing. Well, we're not English teachers. Well, I kind of disagree to a certain extent. You know, in our own specific profession, I think we are. You know, reinforcing vocabulary, reinforcing not swearing, you know, because of our profession. I mean, maybe plumbers are a little bit different than nurses, but, you know, examples can be made. But, you know, in their own right. So I do think we have an obligation. But again, all the classes I've taken through IUP, we've done so many in-service days focused on just literacy. And at the end of it, it seems to me that it's English teachers coming in, teaching English.
Well,
teaching English assessments, you know. So it's difficult to, I'd love to know just what the final product should be. That way we can all have a set goal and get there.
I don't want to get off topic, but I do want to mention that I am a former, you know, CTE instructor. I taught the Baking and Pastry Arts program for 12 years. And, you know, I started incorporating these strategies about 6 years ago. And my students were not passing the NOCTI exam. They were not performing as they should perform in the industry, according to industry standards. And, you know, by incorporating, you know, the things that I try to help teachers do now, you know, I went from, you know, 20% students passing the NOCTI to 100% students passing the NOCTI for 4 years in a row before I left the classroom. And, you know, I'm not saying that to say, well, everything I do is right. I'm just saying that I saw improvement. There was definitely improvement in those things. Now, whether you know, we can debate back and forth forever about whether it's relevant for us, you know, for you as a CTE teacher to be incorporating these things, but the bottom line is, you know, our school requires it. So.
Well, I think it is. I mean, there's no question about that. I'm not trying to get, you know what I mean, but it just seems like there's so many people pulling in so many different directions. It would be nice to have an idea where do we want to end up? You know, where's the ultimate goal?
Can I interject here for a second?
Sure.
And this is Robin speaking. You know, and we got to that point actually here at Erie County Tech, and I did hear that from a lot of different labs. And so I do not, a little bit different than Tracy, I don't generally pick out articles for people. I mean, we have that one that I send around weekly, and they can use it or not. But I ask the lab instructors to choose their own articles, and then I will read the article and make it relevant to the strategy or the initiative for that particular quarter. So if it's building background knowledge, I will show the instructor how to build background knowledge for that particular article that he wants to teach them. So the guy who wanted to use, Sam Seaver, who wanted to do an article on the Chevrolet label brand, that's how we came up with that one. So I don't, and I'll tell them, it's like, I don't know the ins and outs of your discipline, so you choose the article from someplace that you're interested in, and then I will help you work on comprehension strategies, which is what all those initiatives are. And that doesn't matter what you're reading, whether it's Hamlet or your auto textbook, comprehension is comprehension. And so that's why I chose those particular strategies for our literacy initiatives. And so, I mean, I could make you a lesson from your textbook, you know, that will be pertinent to your goals. So really, reading strategies have nothing to do with English teacher goals. They have to do with understanding and comprehending text. So I just kind of want to clear the air on that one. So I don't go in and try and put an English agenda on the instructor at all. I've learned that just does not work. So I hope that kind of clarifies for you what our goals are. So our goals are defined by the instructors, but you know, but what they don't understand, or what and they admittedly don't know about, is just what is comprehension, how do students get it. I mean, they understand something about it because they're good readers themselves, but how to get students to do it is the question. And even with the lab-specific articles, a lot of times students are very reluctant to read those, and they're only one page. So it's about getting them engaged and interested enough to actually read the articles. And so thank you for letting me just interject that there.
I appreciate that.
And I have an example on the screen now of I'm not sure who's, you know, familiar with Cornell or two-column notes, but you know, the main ideas are on the left, the notes and supporting, you know, facts go on the right, and then a summary is written at the bottom. This is an example from early childhood, so that's what it would look like if the student wrote it. And then this is one specifically from the automotive technology instructor, Sam Morocco. And what he does is he uses some scaffolding here. He wants to be specific with the students, what vocabulary they should be covering. So he will do this, and then he goes through this very specifically with his students. You know, so one thing about Sam is he wants them to know what he thinks is the most important and the most relevant information. I wish he was here, information for his students. And this is why he takes the time to do these Cornell notes in the way that he does them. So this is another example of a way he does Cornell notes. You see it's different from the last format, where he has basic engine, ignition systems, starting and charging systems. He has those students write out those things, and they will review those papers together as a group. He makes sure every student has the exact you know, information he wants those students to have. And that's the way he does it. He does it in a very systematic way and very thought out way with his Cornell notes. It's not just students reading the book and taking their own Cornell notes and hopefully they get the stuff down. He does it very systematically. This is another way we incorporate some literacy. I know I'm limited on time, and the format here isn't very good because it's actually in Publisher. But I started doing this with the Motorcycle Marine Small Engine instructor. It's a level 1 journal that's worth 100 points, and basically every day there is an assignment. Monday's assignment, you see there's an MME word of the day. They use that sentence they use it in a sentence. They define it. There's 2 math problems per day that's relative to what the journal is about, which covers exactly what they're covering in the book. And then the reading assignment, explain manual throttle controls, which is exactly what they're covering in their textbook at that time. His theory lesson is geared towards this day's assignment. And every day the assignment is different relative to what the topic is for that week. So he covers things that way. And this is working out very well. This is we've just done this as a pilot, so it is brand new for our school, and we have 2 teachers actually doing it right now, and they're both finding great success with it. It incorporates the literacy strategy and the math strategies every day for the students, and it's geared towards a theory lesson. Everything's in a nice package, and then we also create a wrap-up activity for when the journal is over or when that chapter is over, or however many journals it incorporates, and we do some games that incorporate the words and, you know, the explanations and things like that.
Tracy, I'm going to interrupt you here just a moment. We need to wrap up this section so we can cover Common Core before our webinar is over.
Okay.
But I want you to have a chance to mention some last comments, if you would, and
yes.
Robin, you can jump in quickly as well. And I want to make sure that if any teachers have questions, raise your hand or write them in the questions box. John Dietrich did have a question, but I think that he's taken his hand down. So, Tracy, I'll turn it back to you just to finalize a couple of comments.
Is there any questions that I can address before we get off the phone? I have on the screen right now, if you can still see it, my email address. Please do not hesitate to email me with any questions. I'd be willing to share any information with you I possibly can. Anything that you're struggling with, anything that you need help with, any questions you have about what I covered today, or if you want me to share my PowerPoint with you, I'd be happy to do that.
Tracy, quickly on the journals. Now, how did that come about that you got that specific? That's a beautiful journal. Did your teacher volunteer, your 2 teachers that are using it volunteer to do it? Because it's very labor intensive coming up with one for every day. I'm wondering how much time that took you and who volunteered to do that with you to let you know what their day-by-day curriculum was so that you could come up with those prompts.
We actually got the template from another school. They use it as a monthly journal. So we did some very, very, edited revisions with this, and got it down to a workable format. It's 1 week at a time, so 5 days are in one packet, worth 100 points for the student every week. And, we pared it down. We got it to the point that it was manageable for the instructor. And there's a rubric that's in there with it for the writing assignment. The students are very clear, they're given a clear instruction about what's expected of them every day with the literacy and numeracy work that's to be done. And I asked for volunteers, and two of the instructors, one specifically the motorcycle teacher, really took it upon himself to really, we work closely every week. He provides me with the words, he provides me with the topic to cover, he provides me with along with the numeracy coach, the math problems. So they're all related.
Okay, super.
This is great information. Robin, for anybody who wants to contact Robin too, we have Robin's contact information. And both of you, I really appreciate all the effort you put into putting some PowerPoints together. Great examples, real specific to our auto tech teachers. So thank you very much. and reestablish, so that's good to know. And I can unmute your microphone now, Sharon. Can you hear me? Patience there. So a little brief overview of what's the latest with Common Core.
Absolutely. My name is Lehigh Career and Technical Institute. There are two of us full-time here, and we are instructional. We're not math. We're not content-based. Before I came to LCTI, I was curriculum and instruction at a regional intermediate unit, which gave me the opportunity to work very closely with PDE and SAS. So if we could move to the next slide, I was asked to give just a quick overview on the update of Common Core. And you'll see two different screenshots here. The first bullet is the National Common Core State Standards. The bottom bullet is the Pennsylvania Common Core State Standards. They're alike, yet they are different. And I wanted to just draw some attention to the differences because as we move forward aligning our curriculum to the Pennsylvania Common Core, we sometimes got tangled up with the National Common Core, especially when we were talking with publishers or technology companies who had seemed to develop their material for the Common Core. So what I did was I looked at geometry, and the first two standards for geometry, if you look in the pink box, A1 and A2, that's the National Common Core Standards for geometry, the first two. If you look down at the bottom at the blue box under the Pennsylvania Common Core State Standards, those are the first two geometry standards for Pennsylvania. They're alike, yet very different. The new standards, the Pennsylvania standards, mirror the content and the rigor of the National Common Core, but in Pennsylvania, the organization and the design is different. So if we could go to the next slide. Ready?
Sorry, my slide clicker's a little slow, sorry.
That's okay. I wanted to just ground us in some critical, if you can just click and get them all up there, that would be great. I wanted to ground us in 4 bulleted items. First, the Pennsylvania State Board adopted the Common Core Standards just 2.5 years ago. And so I have a 2.5-year-old grandson, and he's a little wobbly and not very clear in some areas when he communicates. But the goal of the Pennsylvania State Standards were they wanted fewer standards, they wanted higher standards, more rigorous standards, and they wanted cleaner or clearer standards. And so when you compared that pink box to the blue box, they're very comparable, but they are fewer, they are higher, and they are clearer. Again, as I said in the previous slide, they're more rigorous. Pennsylvania mirrors the National Common Core, but they really are challenging. And the third bulleted item, there really only are 2 content areas that have Common Core State Standards, and it's English, Language Arts, and Mathematics. And I loved so much of the talk earlier because it was literacy focused, and the standards define our literacy responsibility. There are two documents. One is the Pennsylvania Common Core, Reading and Writing for History and Social Studies, and the second document is Reading and Writing for Science and Technical Subjects. Technical subjects are CTE labs. If we could go to the next slide, please. Here you see, yep, you're good. Here you see 2 screenshots of what they look like if you went into the SAS portal. And this is where it defines what we are legally responsible for addressing within the CTE lab. And there are 3 shifts, really, really major shifts that I thought really impact CTE. And we have an academic center at LCTI, and for us, this is really a shift. The first bulleted item, and somebody mentioned this and I thought it was so powerful. They were saying the articles have to be relevant. For the first bulleted item, the big shift in high schools is what they're calling 70-30. In the past, someone said we always taught Hamlet. The Common Core Standards are now telling us that at the high school level, we should be addressing 70% nonfiction. And that's the good news for CTE labs, is because our ELA and high school teachers, they're now taking your your textbooks and your articles, and they're using them as the text they're teaching from. The second bulleted item is regular practice with complex texts. This is the biggest challenge. What was acceptable as a 10th grade reading text has now been pushed down to 8th or 9th grade. They're saying that what we used to read in 10th grade is now 8th and 9th grade text material. And that's a whole nother conversation in itself. The third bulleted item is evidence from text. And someone I loved, I wrote down a quote, if you're working on a car, you're always reading. And what's happening is the Common Core Standards they ask you a question, but they want to know, part B, where did you get your answer? How did you know that? So if we could move to the next slide. What we did to address, this slide comes before it. We'll talk about evidence in the next slide, but we'll talk about this one first. Someone else said that vocabulary is critical, and this is true. Vocabulary, I'm a former reading specialist. Vocabulary are the labels we give to our concepts. And this is a slide from one of our HVAC teachers. When you do text complexity, when you give them more challenging text, the vocabulary becomes more challenging. This was a 15-minute mini lesson he did. He did a quiz, he did an assessment, and the kids didn't do very well, and he said to them, reading a ruler is a pinnacle part of plumbing and heating. Now, he didn't spend a whole lot of time because he is not a reading expert, but he just looked around the group. He said, what do you think pinnacle means? And you know, they all looked at each other and they said, well, it's important, obviously. So they're making connections to pinnacle. And he said, we're going to do these mini lessons sporadically. And he said, what do you think sporadically means? And they looked at each other and they said, we're going to do it basically every now and then until we get it. So he was taking the more complex vocabulary, connecting it to what they know, and then went on with his math lessons. It's not like you have to give them these intensive vocabulary assignments. So one example of complex text and how it can be addressed in a CTE lab. The next slide, please. Evidence from text, and this applies to all labs, but more importantly, not more importantly, but a reality check is we have been informed, even though there aren't release items for our students' Keystone exams, and I don't know if they're impacting your schedule as much as ours, but in the Keystone exam, the students will be asked two parts to a question. They'll ask them, what's the answer to the question? But the second part is B, how do you know that? And they want, what the Keystones are asking our students to do is go back to the text and say what line it says that and to quote it. Now here's the kicker. They can answer A correctly. They can know the answer to the question, but if they can't answer B correctly, they don't get credit for A. So the question's wrong. It's not just being able to give an answer. It's being able to provide evidence that this is the correct answer. And for a lot of us, this was the shock. So we made posters. This is a sample of our poster, and we distributed it to many classrooms as a reminder for us. Okay, hint. On the next slide, who's doing what? Aligning the Common Core to the CTE lab. On the left are screenshots of the 18 reading and writing standards for technical subjects. What we did was on an in-service day in the beginning of the year, we just read through them, and then we said, talk about it and which ones do you address in your lab. You know, we don't want you to stretch it. Just be honest, because we all know you're doing many of these things already. So if you want to click to the next page, we have some samples what we got back. This is auto technology. If you look, the task number is in the second column. And then if you look on the right, 12A, 12B, 12C, these are the Common Core standards. And so the lab, the guys got together and they said, this is what we're addressing. Not every lab has the same needs or delivers the same type of content, and we all recognize that. If you could go to the next slide.
Want me to go on past cosmetology?
Yes, thank you. That's good.
Okay.
We just wanted to show you. Here's an example of cosmetology. And that's good. Do you want to go back to cosmetology?
Sure, sorry.
No, that's okay. Here, they address more heavily certain standards. Now, this is just one page of the document. There are 18 standards, so if you go over to the right, I just cut it off so it was just viewable. Now, if you just want to go to the last and final slide, and you can just double-click this.
Okay.
I think it's okay.
Sorry.
That's good. There was a lot of anxiety when we started talking about the standards and aligning what we're doing to the standards. It's important to remember that the standards are not your curriculum. It's a roadmap for how you deliver your curriculum, and it identifies those skills we need to give our students to be successful, and it's identified benchmarks so that we can be globally competitive. And that's it. In just a few minutes, our update on the Common Core.
That's fantastic.
Are there
go ahead. I was going to ask, are there any questions for Sharon about Common Core, about how you're implementing it in your classroom? You can use the question box on the right-hand side, or you can put your hand up and we'll unmute your microphone to ask a question. Sharon's with us, so she's the expert in this area.
I don't know about that.
You get quite a few questions about integrating it into the specifics about integrating it and how to do it in the curriculum, Sharon?
It's a journey. We started the discussion. Every lab has different needs, and so we work with integration on many different levels. There's no one answer to that.
Right, exactly. Well, we really appreciate this. I'm going to keep Sharon with us, and also still with us, I believe, Robin and Tracy. If you have questions either about literacy issues or about the Common Core, I'm going to keep the question box up, and also please feel free to raise your hand, and we'll take those questions in the next couple of minutes. I want to give a couple of final wrap-up questions, but again, thanks to Robin and Tracy and Sharon. This is really helpful information. Hopefully it's helpful to all of you who are listening as teachers. Let me give you just a couple of items on next steps. Again, you can still ask a question in any of the boxes. We do want to let you know that the next Auto Tech PLC webinar is on March 11th, and that topic at that time, we've been talking about integrating literacy strategies, and we'll be talking at that time in March on integrating math strategies in the CTE, specifically into Auto Tech classes. And that one will be in the afternoon of March 11th, 1:30 to 3. And then the next one after that will be on April 24th, and that will be our last one, our wrap-up session for the school year. Yeah, it's coming into spring, huh? Wow, that'll be after a spring break, probably. So that would be nice. So that's kind of an idea on that. Preparation for the next webinar, if you have not done so already as a teacher, you've not created an SAS account or joined the PLC community, just go to pdesas.org. It's pretty easy to do. Don't forget that if you want, oops, I'm sorry, I clicked on the wrong button again. If you want credit on for attending the webinar, you do need to submit the webinar response form and just fill that out and send it to paplc@meterconsulting.com at the very bottom of your screen. Sharon and Tracy and Robin, again, thank you very much for participating. I don't see any further questions. Thanks to all the teachers who participated with us today. I'll be on the line here in just a little bit if you do have additional questions. But if not, until the next time, again, we thank you for participating, and thanks again to all of our presenters. Have a great day.
Thank you.